So after 6 videos, we're already changing up the format.
Yeah, boy.
And instead of covering chapter by chapter, we're going to start covering volume by volume. Because now we're at the beginning of volume 8, which starts at chapter 62 and I believe goes until chapter 70. It is chapter 70, I just had to double check. But this volume is going to be crazy with a bunch of lore drops that I know none of you were expecting if you didn't already know them from further on in the manga, because I know that they caught me by complete and total surprise.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
With the main antagonist of this arc being Santa Claus. I think most people actually refer to it as the Santa Claus arc, but the Santa Claus arc technically started a little bit ago, but since I'm doing it volume by volume, it's not really by arc standards.
Okay.
But let me tell you guys, these next couple of chapters are actually crazy, and I couldn't put my phone down reading them for a good minute. I've went back and reread them a bunch of times so that I could do this, obviously, but also because they were just that cool. We have crazy reveals that I know none of you actually see coming, and we're gonna jump into that right now with chapter 62 titled Super Mess. And chapter 62 starts off where chapter 61 left off, with Quanji and Kishibe getting into their scuffle, where after exchanging punches, Quanji decides to follow it up with a left kick to Kishibe's head, but after he blocks it, he goes in with one of his knives I can assume he conjured from one of his devil contracts, but before it reaches Quanji, she catches it with just her index and her thumb. Straight aura farmer right here, I can already tell. But as she catches it, Kishibe had already assumed that she would do something like this, probably because he knows the way she fights from prior experience, and had already let go of the knife to follow it up with a kick to slam the knife into her. But Quanji doesn't fall for this, dodging the knife and the kick, and catching his leg and tossing Kishibe straight out of the fucking window.
That was totally it!
Like, this man follows a couple of stories, and he lands on top of a car, completely crushing in the roof. And after this, we cut back to the room to see that Aldo is still having his one-sided shootout with the horned devil that has Denji pinned down. And as he's letting shots off, trying to hit the horned devil, he gets a couple of them in her arm, but she turns around, and at this point, we kind of see what her actual devil contract might be, or I guess I should say what kind of fiend she is, because she turns and breathes an entire giant ball of fire at Aldo, which would kill most people, so congratulations to Aldo not being completely useless, because he dives to the side and manages to dodge the fireball, letting a couple more shots ring out. But Quanji decides that he's been beating up on her girlfriend for far too long, and picks his ass up and throws him out of the window too, where we see that Kishibe already has gotten up and is walking away from the dented car, and exactly where he fell on top of the car, Aldo is now there, except with much less cushion to catch him. And poor Kobeni is sitting with Violence on one of the earlier floors trying to take out more of the dolls, and she's staring out of the window when she realizes that this car that has been completely crushed was in fact hers again. But from there we cut back to the room with all of our hunters in it, and we see that Power still has the weird-haired fiend in a grapple with a knife to her neck. And Quanji says, "Hey, could you please let go of her, sweetheart? I really don't want to have to fight you," which me and Power take as her hitting on Power, and Power just straight up calls her a freaking cheater, because, I mean, let's be honest, Power probably doesn't know that she has an entire harem of fiends. But we see a shark fin in the background. And that shark fin is none other than our guy Beam sneaking up to do exactly what Makima said and back up Denji whenever he needs it, because he rams his head into the back of the horned fiend, making her let go of Denji, and he helps Denji up, and they start running, with Denji letting Beam know that Quan Chi is a frickin' monster, and they do not need to fight her at all. And the Horn Devil calls for Quan Chi to help her chase them down, because I guess the Horn Devil knows that she's not fast enough to keep up with our guys. And Quan Chi's about to, start running, but she is quickly interrupted by Yoshida stepping in, standing back up, and saying that he wants a second round with Quan Chi. So they start throwing hands, they start delivering kicks to each other and punches to each other, but Yoshida's dodging most of them and lets one good punch off that knocks Quan Chi back, letting Quan Chi know that if he actually let her get a good hit on him, that it would more than likely kill him. And he accuses Quan Chi's strength of just plain out not being human.
I know what you are!
Which is a hint to us that Quan Chi could either be a fiend or a kind of hybrid of sorts, or have a devil contract that gives her superhuman strength, but I'm kind of leaning more on the hybrid side of things, because it's implied that this is actually Quan Chi's strength, so we'll have to see. But after this, we actually cut back to Denji and Beam running away, where they're sprinting through the bottom of the department store, and Denji actually feels a sharp pain in his foot and looks down and actually stepped on a nail, which, ooh, it's horrible to look at. I hate that, because it goes straight through his foot. But next to the nail on the ground, we see Tolka acting like a doll, laying there pretending like he's one of the dolls that's already been defeated, and stabs Denji with the final needle, or the final nail that needed to pierce him to activate the curse that his master had set up all those chapters ago. And whenever this nail actually makes contact with Denji and pierces through him, it takes a second, but then Denji starts levitating up into the air, and his arms are pulled into a crucifixion position, where a giant devil shows up behind him with horns and bones, and it's more of a skeleton than any kind of humanoid creature, and the horns piercing out of its chest pierce through Denji, crucifying him and leaving him bleeding out when it drops him back to the ground. And as Denji lie on the ground bleeding out, Beam decides that he's going to try and help Denji get back up, and he's shaking Denji and he's trying to wake him up, but Tolka stands up and delivers a powerful kick straight to Beam's face, knocking him unconscious too. And with that, we start chapter 63, titled Trip to Hell, in which we start exactly where we left off, with Tolka standing over the bodies of Beam and Denji, and he's trying to pick them up and move them to a different location, whenever his master walks in on him and starts clapping and applauding him, saying, "You finally did it, Tolka. You did the mission that I set you out on and have become an official devil hunter in your own regard." But Tolka doesn't really think that this is the time for praise, and tells his master, "Yeah, I don't think it's the time for that. Help me move these bodies. We got to get these out of here." But something eerie starts to happen, with his master saying, "I don't think these bodies need to go anywhere," and continues on her little monologue saying that he's always listened to her and fulfilled all of her tasks diligently, even when it seemed pretty hard on him. And Tolka doesn't really understand what all is going on here, but his master just continues on and says that he's part of the family now, and tells him that she's going to let him know how to make a sophisticated doll, and says that you take the body of the person that you wish to make into a doll, and you add emotions that only humans have: adoration, worship, pity, and the secret ingredient is guilt. As she touches him on the shoulder and brings her hand down to his heart, And as she does, he starts convulsing and contorting and turns into one of the dolls from Santa Claus, drawing a weird parallel between Tolka's master and Santa Claus that will be explored further in just a bit, but I did not see them being connected in this kind of way, to be completely honest. And so we cut back to the fight with Quan Chi, with Quan Chi and Yoshida fighting, and Quan Chi just picks Yoshida up over her fucking head and throws him out the window too. I don't know what's up with Quan Chi and just evicting motherfuckers, but she does not want people in her house.
Get out of my house!
And so as Yoshida's falling, he actually uses his octopus contract to catch himself with a giant tentacle. And so we cut back to Aki, who just woke up and watched all of this happen. And as him and Kusakabe and Tamaki? It was Tamaki and Angel all get to start, getting in their stance to fight with Quan Chi. She's like, really, you just watched me throw 3 people out the damn window, and you guys really want it too. But as this is happening, Aki actually gets a premonition from the future devil, but we don't get to see what that is. All we get is him asking what kind of future this is. And so we go back to following Tolka and his master, or I guess doll Tolka now, as we get a side-by-side shot of Tolka, his master, and Santa Claus, as Santa Claus stands at the beginning of the department building, and Tolka's master walks away. And as she walks away, she says, "Bye-bye, Grandpa." I don't know if that means that they're related or what. I would assume so. And so Santa Claus waves goodbye with one of those doll sword arms, walks into the department building, and stabs himself through the chest, saying that he offers his heart and all of his beloved children to the Hell Devil to drag the department store and everyone in it to hell. As he stabs himself through the chest, falls to the ground, and we see a giant finger pull away his children in Germany that he adopted at the beginning of so many chapters ago. And so everyone who was in the department store is cast into a black void and is confused about what is happening, while everyone outside of the department store is confused and scared about the fact that they are watching a giant hand come out from the heavens and grasp at the department store, crushing it and teleporting it in its hands as Tolka's master sits on a doll and watches from afar. And so everyone in the department store is confused about why they've just been cast into a void of black darkness, not able to see anything but the people around them. While everybody on the outside of the department store is confused and in horror about what is happening before them as a giant amputated hand comes down from the sky and clasps around the department store, leaving nothing in its wake. And on the final page of the chapter, we see as our crew is finally brought back together, but in a flowery field with a sky made up of nothing but closed doors. And so we start out chapter 64, titled Welcome to Hell, where we get another wide view shot of the grassy plains that they're in, which have flowers much akin to the flowers that are in something like Hell's Paradise. They're kind of creepy looking, but, they're still flowers. There's nothing actually wrong with them. They just kind of look a little weird. And we get to see that on the ground, what is creepy is there are just a bunch of fingers that look like they might be wriggling around like worms down there. And we get another view of the sky that is still made out of doors. And so we see everybody is gathered together once again. Everybody in the department store has been gathered to this one singular place. And Aki notices that Denji is on the ground in a lot of pain from being freaking crucified.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
So he walks over there and he rips up on Denji's ripcord to at least have him start regenerating, which he grows a tiny chainsaw out of his forehead, and he does come back to consciousness, not fully regenerating, and Quan Ji suspects that it's probably because he doesn't have enough blood to actually go through a full transformation and actually regenerate everything. But noticing that Quan Ji is here, Aki and Kusakabe decide that they're probably going to need to fight to keep Denji safe, and as they're stancing up, they're actually quite surprised as Quan Ji doesn't actually really want to fight right now. She wants to have a temporary truce because the fiends are not really acting like themselves right now. And so we look over at the fiends, and basically every fiend in the group is having problems with powers kind of in a trance, staring wide-eyed at the ground. The fiend that has the weird hair is kind of just confused about how they got to this place, and the fiend that has the horns can't even really speak at this point, just kind of screaming. We see the violence fiend just keep saying that he feels bad, and the angel fiend is staring out into the distance. So Aki asks the angel fiend if they're familiar with the place that they're at, and the angel fiend just kind of says that they're all screwed, basically. Angel confirms to the rest of the group that they are in hell. That's what the scent is, and that's what it looks like. And that is hard to believe, but some other devil's power sent them all to hell. And finally, we get the names of those two fiends that roll around with Quan Ji for right now. We don't have the other two's names, but at least we have some of them, because I can't just keep calling them the blank fiend and the blank fiend when I don't even know what kind of fiend they are. And they are Long and Pinks, which is very hard to say. Maybe I'm just illiterate, but wow, is Pinks a weird name. But either way, Long is the fiend with the horns, and Pinks is the fiend with the weird hair. And she asks them if there's any way to get out of here. But Long still can't really make a sentence because she's under so much mental pressure that she's just kind of screaming in agony. And Pinks lets her know that she's barely keeping it together as is, and they're being watched by some other devil that is very, very powerful. And this is where we get one of the bigger lore drops of the volume, with Pinks letting us know that there are devils that are based on the primal fears that humans have, known as the primal devils, and they're transcendent beings that have never once experienced death. And one of them is on the way, and if they even so much as gather its ire in any form or fashion, that they are all going to be disposed of basically immediately and with zero effort. And so Pinks is so afraid of this devil that she looks over to Quan Ji and asks for permission to rage quit life. I can't really put it in any better terms that won't get this video restricted. But Quan Ji obviously says that she's being silly and that she's going to find a way out, but before she can come up with a plan, Pink starts to actually lose it because whatever devil has been watching them is getting closer, and in fact, she has an idea of which one, and as we see one of the doors open and a black amorphous blob drop out of it, it's revealed that the darkness devil is what Pinks has been sensing this entire time. And in what is probably one of the coolest pages I have seen in my short span of reading manga, we see the introduction of the Darkness Devil as he walks towards our crew of devil hunters with his path adorned in the bisected bodies of astronauts, with the top half of the astronauts still in their suit adorning the right side of his path, all praying, and the matching legs to each of those astronauts adorning his left path, so he can walk in between them as he walks up on our crew. The Darkness Devil looks roughly about twice the height of any of the fiends or humans present currently. He has 4 heads leading up from his stomach all the way up to his upper chest, and then his 5th head being his main head in the normal place that you would actually see a head. And he is wrapped with arms and adorned with a darkness cloak covering all of his back. The arms seem to be connected to a certain head, but also he can use them freely if he wants. And while most of his heads on his chest look kind of zombie-ish but still human, his main head looks more like the beak of a bird being sharp and protruding with 2 devil horns coming out of the back, but he also has the upper jaw, like the upper mouth of a human skull under the beak. And as he walks up on our crew, everything is enveloped in darkness except for the ground, and he basically, with his brain, I guess, rips off the arms of everyone present. Tolka, Power, Aki, Kusakabe, Denji, Quanji, they all lose their arms and they're just floating in the sky until the Darkness Devil allows them to drop. And everybody, in horror and confused at the situation, is just kind of mouth agaped right now, just looking for an answer of what's happening.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Except for Tolka, or well, the doll that was Tolka, and says that he's completed his end of the contract and he's brought the heart of Chainsaw Man to the Darkness Devil. And as a reward for completing his part of the contract, he wants the Darkness Devil to give him the power to kill Makima. And as Denji loses his ever-loving mind that somebody would dare come after his fair Makima, the fucking simp, after this we get to see a flashback of when Santa Claus was hired by Germany to come and capture Denji. And in this flashback, whenever we saw it in real time, he was handed a note that had some kind of substance to it that we didn't actually get to see. But now, during this flashback, we see from Santa Claus's perspective and get to read the note, although it's in German, I believe. And so whenever I translate it, it basically reads as, Makima can hear us, the end days are near, kill Makima. And that is the real job that he accepted. He was never after Denji in the first place. And so we look back into the human realm as we see Tolka's master sitting on one of those dolls and presumably remote controlling Tolka from the safe distance that is not in hell, as one of these amputated arms brings her a little piece of darkness, and she recognizes this as a piece of the Darkness Devil and goes to swallow it and consumes part of its flesh to be made stronger. So apparently the Darkness Devil accepted the terms and conditions that Tolka set. Oh, and I kind of glossed over this earlier, but whenever Tolka kneeled down to the Darkness Devil, it was revealed that he is actually the Doll Devil. So, by extension, this makes Tolka's master the Doll Devil, in which I will just be calling her the Doll Devil from now on, so I don't have to keep saying Tolka's master. But now we get into the good shit, with Chapter 65, titled The Darkness Devil, starting us back out in hell, where Denji looks over questioning why Tolka just said he was going to kill Makima, and the Darkness Devil grabbing Tolka by the throat and pulling him up into the air as everybody watches in awe, and he squeezes and pops Tolka's head right off. But as he's doing this, Kusakabe, I guess, decided that he wasn't going to take this lying down, because with the amputated arm spot that was left behind from the Darkness Devil, it is bleeding, and he uses this to draw a circle on the ground, because those of you who watched my previous videos or just read the manga will know that Kusakabe's devil contract is with the Stone Devil, in which when he draws a pentagram-like circle, I guess with his own blood, or maybe it can be with any substance, when he stands in the middle of it and blows out towards his target, he can turn them into into stone, but only while he stands in this circle. And so he's drawn this circle behind the Darkness Devil's back and stands in it to try and turn the Darkness Devil into stone. But the Darkness Devil is not that weak, and as he blows at it to try and turn it into stone, Tolka's body is replaced with that of the Stone Devil, as the Stone Devil turns into stone as though he put it in the way of Kusakabe's attack. But it seems that there's actually more to this, because Kusakabe also turns into stone, and both him and the Stone Devil shatter into pieces. And now most of our crew is realizing that they've got to do something or they're all going to die down here. So Beam walks over to Denji and uses the amputated spot where his arm was and he's bleeding from to pour his own blood into Denji's mouth and use his teeth to pull on Denji's ripcord, hopefully getting Chainsaw Man out and getting Denji healed up so that he can actually assist them in the fight that is currently going down. And he does get the ripcord pulled and Denji does start to heal, but basically as soon as this happens, the Darkness Devil bisects Beam in like 3 different ways. So like his head's cut off, he's cut in the middle of his chest, and I think his legs are even cut off. And as all of this is happening, Violence asks Kobeni to take off his mask for him, which is foreshadowing to this kind of monster that Violence can really be when he actually wants to live up to his name. But after cutting Beam into thirds, yeah, I checked, his legs didn't get cut off, but he still got trisected. The Darkness Devil decides that he needs to, find his next victim. And everybody realizes that this is the case as they try to dodge out of the way, but even though they tried to dodge, Darkness is just too fast, as he points over at this group of people and chops up Tamaki, Quan Chi, Power, Pinks, and Long all in half of a second, and as they're all falling to bits, we get introduced to Violence's true form, because we see this giant Herculean beast of a man show up out of nowhere with 4 eyes and still no arms, as he decides to drop this hulking leg that he has onto the Darkness Devil. But one of the Darkness Devil's mouths says something that I can't really understand. I tried to translate it, and there's not really an actual translation. A lot of people think that it's just a made-up language, like some of these mangaka do. And as we hear whatever word this man's just said, it riddles Violence with so many holes, and I mean like he just got hit with 30 special beam cannons straight out of Piccolo's fingers like he was loading up the blicky. And as he falls, Denji jumps off of his back, leaping into action, still not fully transformed into Chainsaw Man with just half of a chainsaw coming out of his forehead, but he does have the chainsaw arms to actually attack with. And as Denji brings down the chainsaw from above onto the Darkness Devil's head right before it hits, Aki is reminded of Himeno as he looks at Denji and Power lying on the ground. Well, Denji about to be lying on the ground. Power actually is lying on the ground, as he says that he can't let this happen again, but before he can really do anything about it, we see all of the heads on the Darkness Devil's torso clasp their hands in front of them, as I guess they might be chanting, I can't really tell, and as they clasp their hands, Denji is crumpled up like a ball of paper, just cracked in all of the wrong places. But as all of this is happening, Violence has decided that he's not out of the fight just yet, because we see that he has leaped into the air behind the Darkness Devil, and I guess he picked up one of his torn off arms with his mouth and plans to use that as a weapon, which is fucking metal. But as he brings it down onto the Darkness Devil, before he can actually make contact, he gets stabbed through the chest with a sword that appears to be made out of darkness and has 4 bells on the hilt. And we see Violence's face contort as he starts to spit out blood, and we hear one of the bells ring. And as the bell rings, Violence's body explodes into multiple parts and rains over Darkness and Aki, who is kneeling in front of him. So we start out chapter 66 with Aki and Angel looking as if they've hit the bottomless pit of despair, as they both sit there on their knees and subsequently collapse into the ground. And looking like there's no hope for them left, the Darkness Devil appears to think that he's going to reap his rewards. But as he goes to take on Aki and Angel, as they're just kind of letting it happen, Prinz, who looks like the Spider Fiend, the same fiend that Makima was talking to whenever she sent Beam to help, the one that she told to make sure she can bring back as many of their men as physically possible, jumps out of the flowers and attacks the Darkness Devil. But as Prinz goes to attack with all 8 of her legs stabbing into the Darkness Devil, before they can actually make contact, he de-limbs her. What else did you think was going to happen? He's de-limbed everybody so far. I don't know what his thing with amputation is, but he just loves it. I mean, he's a quirky guy. What can I say? You know, like, it's not like he's the Darkness Devil or anything, you know. He might be the amputation devil, I guess. I don't know why he keeps cutting off people's arms. But as Prinz falls to the ground, we cut to Makima saying that it's that damn Darkness Devil trying to bide her into coming and saving them. And Prinz asks her to please not try to come, saying that she must not, but Makima makes her summon her anyways, and as she says, "Yes, ma'am, as you wish," and summons Makima, Prinz splits down the middle as her skin falls to either direction, and Makima appears from where it was as if she stepped out of Prinz like a portal. And as Makima shows up, the Darkness Devil takes an immediate recognition of her presence and decides that he's going to attempt to attack her, pointing his finger at her, assumably to try and dismember her. But as he points his finger at her, she points a finger back and also dismembers him at the cost of her finger getting broken and torn apart like Denji did in the last chapter. And after showing us that apparently Makima can even hurt the Darkness Devil, she walks over to Tolka's corpse that has his head dismembered but still near it. And upon seeing this, the Darkness Devil decides that he's going to face off with Makima again, and they both face a palm at each other, but Makima loses this battle as it crumples her entire arm. Now, getting ready for this, the Darkness Devil summons that same sword that we saw, but Makima has other plans as she places a hand on Tolka's decapitated head and forces him to ask the Hell Devil to bring them back and offers all of himself once again. And as they're being teleported back, Makima gets stabbed with the sword, but is presumably okay since she didn't wait long enough for the bells to ring. And just like that, we're all back and out of hell. Yeah! Or are we?
Huh?
Because, wow, this shit's just getting freakier and freakier by the moment. Because the first thing we see is a pile of those people who got turned into dolls kind of crowding into one another. And emerging from what that was, that pile, mosh pit of dolls, is the Doll Devil, who was Tolka's master, in case you don't remember, and she does not look the same, because now she's not wearing any clothes, but that's okay because her abdomen and her chest were both replaced with doll body parts. And connecting her abdomen To her pelvis, chest area, is a doll head from one of the people that got turned into dolls. And acting as legs are also just a stack of doll heads for each leg. And now she has what looks like 8 arms that have an extra doll piece attached in the middle of them to lengthen the reach of each of those arms. As she says that this is the power of darkness, and saying that she'll come to understand all of it, having this weird obsession with wanting to understand everything. But upon emerging from this pile of dolls and amalgamating parts and pieces of them into herself, the doll devil and or Santa Claus decides that it's time to bring the fight to Makima and jumps out of the pile and up to the roof of wherever it is that the rest of the devil hunters and Makima were spit out from hell, where she holds Denji's body, saying that it's very nice to meet her and that her dreams will come to an end. But Makima says, "Hello, Santa Claus," as she pulls Denji's ripcord and tells Denji that since the doll devil has merged with the darkness devil, no attacks in the darkness will be able to harm her anymore, and then asks Denji if he will please save her. And Denji, like the fucking simp he is, immediately gets up, transforms into Chainsaw Man, and lets out a big ol' woof as he turns into Makima's fucking dog. And so we start chapter 67, titled The First Devil Hunter. And don't worry, guys, we are so close to being done with this volume. I've been recording for 4 hours. But this chapter is very word heavy at the beginning of it, so I apologize if there's a lot of cuts. I'll have to double check over my words at a couple points in time. But we start out with Kishibe and Yoshida sitting next to each other as they decide that what's been happening isn't actually a war for Chainsaw Man. It's always been a war between Santa Claus and Makima over something that they don't really know yet. But Yoshida doesn't really seem to care as long as he gets paid, and Kishibe has to double check, asking, "Are you sure Makima's not listening right now?" And we kind of get a little bit of a lore drop here too, because we find out that the reason Makima can hear everything all the time is because she borrows the hearing from lower forms of life like rats or birds or any of the sort, and uses their hearing to eavesdrop on people. But Yoshida's already used octopus to check around and make sure that there were no rats or birds or any of the like around listening in on them. And Kishibe tells him not to go sticking his nose in places where it doesn't belong, but Yoshida assures him that he doesn't have any kind of time for that because he's still in school and he's got finals. But after this conversation, we cut back to the fight between Denji and the Doll Devil, where Denji's slashing off arms left and right, and the Doll Devil just keeps on regenerating them back, and they fall through the building as the Doll Devil gushes about how good its new body is, and how it was only half a year away from death, but with the power of the Darkness Devil, as soon as they touch darkness, all of their wounds just happen to heal instantaneously and without delay. But Denji's not really interested in the whole immortal thing, and lets them know that they need to do less talking and more fighting. But as Denji rushes in to continue the fight, the Doll Devil sends a horde of dolls to grab Denji and push him away so that she still doesn't have to do any of her dirty work. Don't understand why she wants so much power if she's just not gonna use it. But from there we cut back to a rooftop where the patched up fiend, the one with stitches on her face that was Quan Chi's girlfriend, or one of them, holds Quan Chi's head in her arms as she stands at the edge of the building. And as she stands there, she sees Pink's and Long's heads decapitated and bleeding out. And I guess, filled with sorrow over the loss of her other 2 companions, she reaches into Quan Chi's eye socket that had the eye patch over it and pulls something out as she drops Quan Chi's head from the building. And what she pulled out looks like an arrow, because when she drops Quan Chi's head, it lands in the pile of dolls that are currently ganging up on Denji and swallowing Denji in the middle of it. But as the head falls into this crowd, bodies start flying out left and right as we see Quan Chi emerge as a kind of bow and arrow fiend because her head is now shaped like a bow with an arrow in it, and she has kind of arrows sticking out of points of her body. And after dealing with basically the entire crowd, she stands next to Chainsaw Man and tells him to help her until she can kill that damn doll devil, because she killed her women. And so she says that it's kind of useless to defeat the dolls now since they're so powered up from the darkness devil. It won't do anything until the doll devil is defeated. And so Denji says that, or I can chop them up like a blender because they won't get up from that, and tells her to watch his back. But as he turns around, she's already gone. He's like, whoa, damn, she's already out of here. And we cut to the doll devil, who's just walking in some random alley when she is suddenly riddled with fucking holes. And as she's basically atomized from a volley of arrows, she still can speak and says that she didn't anticipate her to be joining us, and that it's a pleasure to meet the first devil hunter as she reforms. But as quickly as she can reform, she's blasted to a million pieces again by Quan Chi. And the doll devil says that that tickles as she realizes that she can spread her pain between all of her dolls so that she barely feels it at all, and then ponders how to deal with a hunter that is invisible. And then we cut back to Denji as the doll devil wonders how will Chainsaw Man deal with this kind of enemy, because in the last page of chapter 67 we see that she has given the dolls that are chasing Denji their own form of sentience as they chase him, saying stuff like, what has happened to my arms, or my body's moving on its own, and all Denji can think is, wow, this is seriously messed up. This is that supervillain shit you only see in movies. And in chapter 68, titled Dark Power, we see is the doll hunter still pondering if a devil hunter can even defeat these kinds of dolls, as Denji just runs away from them screaming, nope, nope, I'm not dealing with this shit.
Oh, hell no! Hell no!
And as he's running around only killing the dolls that he has to not be killed himself, he eventually gets overrun by the dolls and piled up on once again, where Quan Chi once again has to come and save him by blasting holes through all the dolls. And Quan Chi tells him that they're only mimicking humans, that they don't actually have their own form of sentience. And Denji's just like, how do you know that? Like, how do you know that? And Quan Chi just says, I'm just assuming ignorance is bliss. And basically saying what she did a couple of chapters ago and assuring Denji that if he just assumes that they don't actually have feelings and that they're not actually humans, then it'll be a whole lot easier to kill them. But as she gives Denji this pep talk and gets him able to actually defend himself once again, the doll devil comes out of the darkness and grabs onto Quan Chi's leg, saying that she finally got him. But Quan Chi fills her with more arrows again and basically rains arrows down on her until she's atomized. And as she's getting up and regenerating from this, Quan Chi realizes that night is starting to fall and that this is not good, as we see that the new doll devil that has been regenerated looks demonized and twice the size of the old doll devil we were seeing in just the last page, as she exclaims that this is the true power of darkness. And while Denji's thinking, is it just me or did she just get way creepier, she speed blitz him and kicks him into a gas pump, exploding him and setting him on fire. And as all of this is happening, she tells Quan Chi that while they were busy fighting, she took the liberty of making a couple more dolls. And we look as it pans over to Quan Chi's girlfriends, or at least the three of them that we've seen thus far, being turned into dolls, helping each other walk towards Quan Chi and even stabbing her through the gut. But as Pink stabs through Quan Chi doesn't even fight back and just holds Pink with an embrace that she has towards her former lover, unwilling to harm her. And as she does, the doll devil wonders if she can even make a hybrid into a doll as she reaches her hand out. But before she can, we see Denji Dingy pouring gasoline all over himself, sparking it up with his chainsaw, and tackling onto the doll devil, giving himself a forceful piggyback ride, and saying that this is his power of light as the darkness devil, or well, the doll devil empowered by the darkness devil, starts to scream in pain. And so we kick off chapter 69 titled Shining Power at the exact same place, with Dingy bear hugging the doll devil, on fire, burning them both. But as the doll devil screams in pain, she tries to find a way to kick Dingy off, and does, as she says, even after deepening her wisdom with the power of the darkness devil, she still can't comprehend the actions of fools. But Dingy says, I ain't no fool. I watch educational TV every single day. Because as she looks down, she realizes that Dingy is a bit smarter than he looks, because he done wrapped a chain from his chainsaw around the doll devil and pulls himself back in like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat to keep that burning love coming. And as Dingy dives in, he's both burning the doll devil by latching onto her and hacking at her with his chainsaws, trying to decapitate her. But she says that it's no use because she can just But she says it's no use because she can just redistribute the pain between all of her dolls. But Dingy notices that her regeneration is, in fact, slowing down. But because Dingy won't let her go, the doll devil sicks all of her dolls onto Dingy to tackle him into a dog pile once again. It says that this is a fitting death for a dog who wags his tail for Makima, but she's even surprised now because Dingy just drank all of those dolls' blood to empower himself even more to march through. But more dolls keep on coming, piling onto Dingy even after he's drank the blood of all the dolls who have previously came before, and the doll devil says that he just needs to go ahead and die, that she'll let him see Makima soon enough. But she realizes that she still has a chain wrapped around her chest as he starts to try and pull her even now. And as she starts to get pulled towards Dingy, the doll devil says that she can't comprehend what he's doing. He's a monster and he needs to stay away from her. She's getting scared because she can't understand Dingy's stupidity. As he pulls her in, and they're having an entire tug-of-war match where it's Dingy versus like 5 or 6 dolls and the doll devil. And as Dingy's pulling to even the odds, because apparently one Dingy equals like 6 dolls and the doll devil has one of her dolls drive a car into Dingy, blowing it up and exploding them. But Dingy lets them know that even though sharing is caring and he appreciates them sharing, if Makima dies, his trip is canceled, as he pulls the doll devil in with one last pull. And as Dingy pulls her in, reels her in with one last heave-ho, he kicks through her with a flaming chainsaw, kind of exploding her from the center. But before she gets the chance to actually regenerate from this damage, he lets her know that this is his shining power, as he, still on fire, picks up another car and throws it on top of her, exploding them both again. And for the final page, we get to see the doll devil being incinerated. And so we start out chapter 70, titled Pinch, as the last chapter in this volume, as the doll devil is still lying on the floor, not regenerating and on fire, and Dingy is cracking open a cold one with the boys as he cracks a doll over his head to use the blood to put out the fire that he was just on. And as the doll devil lies there on fire, she starts laughing, saying that she has a contract with the doll devil. So I guess this is Santa Claus, not the doll devil, but I thought they were one and the same. But either way, she says that she has a contract with the doll devil, and with a mere touch, anybody in the world can be turned into the assassin named Santa Claus, and for the rest of his days, they will continue to evolve with the power of the darkness and hunt Dingy down. And Dingy just simply says, "Hey man, if you're gonna hunt me down, just make sure you don't come after me on Sundays, 'cause I get those off. And the Doll Devil says, I understand you now. You aren't fearless. You just don't have the intelligence to comprehend the implications. How do you want to live like this when I will be chasing you down and everyone you love and everyone you know? There will never be a moment when you are safe and outside of my grip. How can you live like that? And Denji just says, go on. Yeah, no. Dumb it down even further so that an immortal like me will have to use his imagination and understand. But as he's saying that and mocking the Doll Devil, he's decapitated by Quan Chi, who says that the deal's over, the truce is done. And standing behind Quan Chi are two of her other girlfriends, the two that actually survived, where I thought that the patch face one, the one with the stitches, got turned into a doll, but it seems that she was just hanging out with the two that got turned into dolls because she still loved them. Either way, she's not a doll, and her and the Halloween fiend, or whoever it is standing behind Quan Chi, and the Doll Devil says that she will turn Quan Chi into one of her dolls one of these days, but Quan Chi just tells Cosmo to get to work, which Cosmo is the name of the Halloween fiend, we find out. And so Cosmo stands forward and goes to attack the Doll Devil, and the Doll Devil's super confused because Cosmo just goes, Halloween. And the Doll Devil's like, Halloween? And she goes, Halloween. And then she starts up a fucking Dragon Ball reference as she goes to make a Kamehameha. And she goes, Halloween. And she lets it go forward. Which was just unnecessary, but it transports both of them into some kind of mind space where they're not actually in the real world, and it appears like they're in Cosmos's mind. Because as they stand in this library with endless amounts of books, Cosmos sits at the librarian's desk and just says Halloween, again, for some reason. And Santa Claus is back in her humanoid form that she was before she was revealed to be Santa Claus when she was still Tolka's master. And she says, I see. We're inside of your mind right now. She says, it seems like you're trying to use a psychological attack on me, but it's useless, I'm afraid. My mind is linked to all of the dolls that I have around the world. You doing this would be about as effective as trying to dye the ocean red with a single drop of dye. Can you even comprehend that? And finally, thank the gods, Cosmo says something that isn't Halloween. I'm at the I never thought I'd see this day. I thought I was gonna go brain dead from having to hear all of this Halloween talk so much. Thank God. But Cosmo actually speaks up, and she says, Good evening, Santa Claus. I am the Cosmos Fiend. There's no need to be on guard. I hold no personal resentment towards you for the death of my companions. To hunt and to be hunted is simply the natural course of law, and I hold no strong resentment towards you that would have me go against the natural course of that law. And what is about to happen to you is also nothing more than that natural course. And so Santa Claus ponders and asks, what is going to happen to me then? Kind of seeming a little bit smug, like nothing can truly hurt her in this moment. And Cosmo lets her know that she is about to acquire all of the information in the universe. She fancies that she has acquired most of understanding through the power of the Darkness Devil, but this understanding that she has of everything as she knows it doesn't even fill one page in one book of this library. And she says that all of the contents of all of the books in this library are about to flow into Santa Claus's mind, and she will truly begin to understand everything. Santa Claus asks, what will happen to me then? And Cosmo tells her that once she acquires all of this information, she will only be able to think of Halloween until she dies. And thank God I have a fucking reason. Thank God that I don't just have to hear her say Halloween forever with no explanation. That shit was driving me insane for no reason. But it's actually pretty cool. She's basically Gojo. You know what I'm saying? She's like walking around giving people unlimited void for the low, low price of their entire consciousness.
I'll make that deal. How about you bitch? You make that deal?
I'd make that deal.
I don't blame you. Damn good deal.
And so we snap back to reality in the wise words of our Lord and Savior Eminem, as we see the doll devil, or Santa Claus, burning into ash, only being able to repeat Halloween. And as Kwanji looks to the side, she sees Kishibe and Yoshida stepping up. But as she gets ready to fight, they just put on blindfolds as Makima walks forward with a sword. But as soon as they see Makima, they put their hands up and say that they surrender. And Kwanji says that she will do anything as long as Makima just lets her women go and doesn't harm her women, going as far to say that she'll lick her shoes and let her cut off each and every one of her limbs if she thinks that she'll run. And in a crazy callback to what Pinkst said back in chapter 61 when the Devil Hunters were trying to get them to explain themselves before they got decapitated, all Makima says is a corpse is talking with a crazy grin on her face. And Quan Chi, Cosmo, and the Patch-Face Fiend all fall over with their heads decapitated. And as Quan Chi's head lies there, we are made privy to the fact that all over the world, even Aldo, so I guess Cosmo got to Aldo while we were busy in hell, all over the world there have appeared people who can only say the word Halloween. Meaning that whenever Cosmos did this to Santa Claus, all of the dolls that were created by Santa Claus were also made brain dead by Cosmo and can only say Halloween until they die. And so we glimpse back to Yoshida having his blindfold off, asking Kishibe if he isn't going to take his off, but Kishibe just says that he does not want to see a thing. And that's it. That's Volume 8. We did it, boys. We went through damn near 8, maybe 9 chapters in one video. This is gonna be a pain in the ass to edit, but woo! This is gonna be a lot faster than doing one video a week, although it means that I only get to put out a video every 2 weeks because this is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. It's not as easy to do it while I'm having to work around a schedule at work, so maybe we'll be able to fly through some manga faster whenever I can make this my full-time job, but until then, I'm just happy to be able to put out these videos and be able to catch everybody up and just have these kinds of conversations whenever we're going through the manga. And soon I'll be able to make kind of theory videos, and I'm thinking about making kind of, not really theory shorts, but just stuff to focus more on certain parts of the manga that I have to breeze past in order to get these reviews done, and just putting those in shorts and uploading those to have a little bit of short form content that will also just kind of point towards my long form content and maybe get me a couple more views in. But with all of that, I'm ready to sit down. I've been recording forever. I've been shit for brains. Make sure you go down, you leave a like, you leave a comment, and subscribe if you really want to see more of this kind of content. I'm going to keep it coming for as long as I can, and I don't plan to give up anytime soon. So, after all that, I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.